Tension in Whitechapel. The massive amount of immigration in Whitechapel led to racial and cultural tension. One aspect of this was Irish immigration. Around 1/5 to a quarter of the population had to emigrate quickly because of a potato famine. They arrived in London with the plan to move to America, but often they ran out of money. This led them sort of scrambling to put a life together and get through the day in Whitechapel. Many of them finding work as navvies, sort of construction workers, building railways and docks. However, as we've discussed previously, often turning to alcohol as a way of escape, becoming violent when drunk, and this led to a lot of Irish people being stereotyped and looked down on as being drunkards. We also get a group called the Fenians, sort of like an early forerunner to what later became the IRA. Irish, mainly Catholic nationalists who wanted to be free from British rule. A fanatical religious terrorist movement who planned a bomb attack in 1867 known as Dynamite Sunday. The problem with this is it alarms police and led to the establishment of special branch, and as we've discussed, sensationalist media then made out all Irish immigrants to be terrorists. The Irish accent alone was now enough to cause suspicion in Whitechapel. Another group of immigrants that you get in Whitechapel are East European Jews. The assassination of Tsar Alexander II in Russia was blamed on a Jew. As a result, all Jews in Russia were persecuted. These are called pogroms. This led them to flee places such as London, where they, once they arrived, effectively segregated themselves or were segregated from society due to their different physical appearance. And sort of Jewish sweatshops employing only Jewish workers and things like that. The cultural differences. Their different look and language made them resented by locals. They seemed to find success and employment quicker because immigrant business owners would hire them on a lower wage. This caused tension or resentment from Whitechapel residents. Some Jewish sweatshops offered lower prices, and their holy day was Saturday, so they worked Sunday when everyone else was closed, again causing further resentment from Whitechapel business owners. Some of them exploited employees, did not follow employment law, and this means they could charge lower prices because their overheads were lower and their costs were lower. Local Whitechapel residents distrusted the unfamiliarity of Jewish customs and language. This meant there was no integration, and alongside that we see a huge rise in anti-Semitism. You then get political tensions. There's a group called the anarchists. These are people who oppose all forms of government. Problems across Europe caused revolutionary political movements, as we've seen in France. In 1883, a special branch was created to investigate extremism. The number of bombings and outrages caused by anarchists were exaggerated because the top of the hierarchy wanted to stay there. Like the Irish, all Eastern Europeans were seen as anarchists. Again, what we're seeing here is a thread of stereotyping across these groups. Another political movement which rose during this period was socialism or socialists. They want to empower the poor, and they were therefore popular with the poor. They believed that poor people would live better if the government nationalised important industries rather than trying to profit from them. In 1881, the Social Democratic Federation was set up, and its radical leaders want to end capitalism, as in, have an uprising. A Trafalgar Square demonstration in 1887 led to Bloody Sunday, basically again, effectively a repeat of Peterloo. Socialists were protesting in Bloody Sunday, and their peaceful protest was met with violence by authorities, in this case the police, leading to distrust from Whitechapel residents towards the police. Socialists disliked the police and tried to show up the incompetence of the government, as we'll see later on, with potentially, arguably, the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. They aimed to get into Whitechapel Council so that they could have influence. The effects that these tensions had on Whitechapel, well, in summary, chaos. They make it difficult, almost impossible, for the police to enforce law. Police were seen as a controlling arm of the government, as in they're there to control, not help. They saw the police as being introduced to control, not help the population. This made Whitechapel unruly and meant police were never going to be able to make everybody happy. When they did enforce the law, they were seen as government busybodies, and when they didn't enforce the law, they were seen as being incompetent. It's a no-win situation for the police. The tensions made it very difficult for police to deal with crimes, exacerbated, as in made worse, by practical issues such as not being able to speak the same language as victims or perpetrators. The language barrier is a huge problem.